It was just another school day. A cloudy Friday morning in Portland, Oregon. The kind of day no one remembers until they're forced to. June 4th, 2010. Skyline Elementary School. It was Science Fair Day, a special event. Kids had spent weeks preparing their projects. Parents were invited. Cameras were out. The hallways buzzed with excitement. One of those kids was Kyron Horman. 7 years old. Glasses too big for his face. A smile that could melt anyone's heart. He loved frogs, robots, and anything to do with science. That morning, he was proud, so proud. Standing beside his display board, the red-eyed tree frog. His stepmother, Terry, snapped a photo of him. You've probably seen it, the last known photo of Kyron. He's beaming. He looks happy. He looks safe. That photo was taken around 8:15 a.m. Minutes later, he was gone. Gone as in disappeared. Not into a hallway. Not out a door. Not into a stranger's arms, not that anyone saw. He simply vanished. No one saw him leave the building. No one remembers seeing him in class. No one, not teachers, not students, not staff, saw anything at all. He just wasn't there anymore. The rest of the school day went on as usual. Teachers taught. Kids laughed. Parents picked up their children. And no one noticed that Kyron never made it back to class. Never got on the bus. Never came home. It wasn't until nearly 3 p.m. when his mother came to pick him up that anyone realized something was terribly wrong. And by then, Kyron had been missing for nearly 7 hours. What followed would become the largest search in Oregon history. Hundreds of officers, thousands of volunteers, bloodhounds, drones, infrared, but there was no trace, no trail, no sign of Kyron anywhere. And here's the part that chills everyone to the bone. This happened inside a school, during a public event, in broad daylight, with parents, children, and teachers all around. And yet a 7-year-old boy vanished without a trace. No one has seen him since. Not a sighting. Not a lead that held up. Not even a body. It's like the school swallowed him whole. So what really happened to Kyron Horman? Was it someone he knew? Was it a random abduction? Or is there something far more disturbing beneath the surface? Because, as the investigation unfolded, the spotlight turned towards someone very close to him. And the more questions they asked, the fewer answers they found. This is the mystery of Kyron Horman. And this is Dark Truths. 2. Background. Who is Kyron? Before the headlines, before the missing posters, before the desperate pleas on national television, there was just Kyron. Kyron Richard Horman was born on September 9th, 2002, in Portland, Oregon. He was a quiet boy, but not shy, gentle, kind, a little quirky in the best possible way. He had a round face, soft brown hair, and glasses that were just slightly oversized. They gave him a certain charm, the kind of look that said, this kid is going to grow up to build rockets or discover a new planet. Kyron loved science, not just in the way kids say they like space or dinosaurs. He was genuinely fascinated. He'd stay up late reading books about frogs, insects, volcanoes. He once told his dad he wanted to be a scientist who studies frogs, but also maybe robots. A 7-year-old dream full of color and curiosity. At school, he wasn't the most popular kid, but he didn't care. He had a few close friends, a favorite teacher, and a project he was proud of. The red-eyed tree frog. That was the subject of his science fair display. He worked on it for days, picking photos, writing descriptions, making labels. To him, it was more than a school project. It was his chance to show the world what he loved. He lived with his father, Kyron Horman, and his stepmother, Terry Moulton Horman. His biological mother, Desiree Young, also played an active role in his life, although she lived in another town. Despite the complicated family dynamic, Kyron was loved. All three adults, his mum, dad, and stepmom, were involved in raising him. They went to parent-teacher meetings, helped with homework, cheered for him at events. Kyron's home life wasn't perfect, but whose is? To most outsiders, it seemed like a normal blended family. And Kyron? He was the kind of kid you'd walk past on the street and never think twice. The kind you'd see chasing a soccer ball, licking an ice cream cone, or tugging at his backpack straps as he walked into school. Just another second grader. But sometimes, the most chilling stories don't begin with darkness. They begin with normalcy, with a smile, a routine, a child who was supposed to come home that day and didn't. And that's what makes Kyron's case so haunting, because nothing about him said trouble. He wasn't a runaway. He wasn't angry. He had no reason to disappear. That morning, June 4th, he was excited. Excited to show off his science fair project. Excited to be at school. Excited and completely unaware that he was walking into the last known moments of his life as we knew it. He posed for a photo with his stepmother. He smiled, and then he was gone. Kyron Horman was 7 years old. He stood 3 feet, 8 inches tall. He weighed just 50 pounds. He wore a black CSI t-shirt and black cargo pants on the day he vanished. His backpack was blue with green trim. He had a light birthmark on the left side of his face, and he wore glasses that were too big but perfect for him. These details, his shirt, his smile, his love for science, they don't just describe him, they're all that's left of him. Because from the moment he disappeared, those details were all investigators had to work with. A name, a face, and 1,000 unanswered questions. 3. That morning, June 4th, 2010. June 4th, 2010. A cloudy Friday morning in Portland, Oregon. Cool air, a hint of rain in the breeze. Just another day. At least, that's what it seemed like. At 8 a.m., Kyron Horman was dropped off at school by his stepmother, Terry Moulton Horman. They parked together in front of Skyline Elementary, a small school, tucked into the woods northwest of the city. That day wasn't an ordinary school day. It was Science Fair Day, a big event for the kids. Parents were invited to walk the halls and see the displays, and Kyron had been preparing for this moment for weeks. Terry and Kyron walked through the school together, side by side. He was carrying his blue backpack and a poster board titled, "The Red-Eyed Tree Frog." He was excited, nervous, but mostly proud. The two of them spent some time walking round, looking at other student projects, smiling, talking. At around 8:15 a.m., Terry took a photo of Kyron standing next to his own display. It would become the last confirmed photo of him, a now haunting image of a boy beaming with joy, completely unaware of what was about to happen. In the picture, Kyron is smiling wide. He's wearing a black CSI t-shirt and black cargo pants. He stands in front of his colorful display board, bright greens, blues, cut out images of frogs, carefully handwritten labels. Behind him, the school hallway glows under fluorescent light. It looks like any elementary school anywhere in America. After the photo, Terry said goodbye. She told police that Kyron said he was going to head to his classroom, room 8, where his second grade class was starting soon. She watched him walk toward the main hallway, and then she left the school. That was the last time anyone with certainty saw Kyron Horman. What happened next is where things stop making sense. Kyron never showed up to class that day. His teacher marked him absent. But, and this is the chilling part, no one called home. No one asked where he was. It was science fair day. Schedules were loose. Kids were moving around. It didn't seem unusual for a student to be missing from class for a while. Hours passed. No one knew he was gone. At around 3:30 p.m., Kyron's biological mother, Desiree, arrived at the bus stop to pick him up. But Kyron wasn't there. The bus driver said he was never on the bus. Panic set in immediately. Desiree called Kane. Kane called Terry. They all thought the same thing. There has to be a mix-up. But when they contacted the school, they were told that Kyron had been marked absent all day. That's when it became real. 3:46 p.m., the first 911 call was made. Within hours, police were combing through the school grounds. Teachers, staff, volunteers all questioned, all involved. By sunset, a full-scale search was underway. Dozens of officers, canine units, helicopters, but there was no sign of Kyron. Not in the school, not in the surrounding woods, not anywhere. What makes this case especially disturbing is that it defies logic. A child walked into a public school surrounded by teachers, students, parents, and vanished. No security camera footage of him leaving. No witnesses seeing anything strange. No sounds, no struggle. No one remembered seeing him after that last photo. Think about that. In a building full of people, in broad daylight, a second grader disappeared, and not a single person noticed it happening. There are only 2 confirmed points in Kyron's timeline that day. 8:15 a.m., the last photo. 3:46 p.m., the first call to 911. Everything else is a blur. A gap, a void, a 7-hour black hole. Somewhere inside that window, something went terribly wrong. But what? And more importantly, who knew what really happened? 4. The massive search. At first, no one panicked. Kyron wasn't in class, yes, but it was science fair day. Kids were wandering between rooms. Some were helping other teachers. Some were with parents. His homeroom teacher simply thought, maybe he's with someone else. There was no reason to think anything was wrong. Not yet. But as the hours passed, something wasn't right. Kyron never showed up for any of his classes. He never went to lunch. His name stayed on the absence sheet all day. Still, no alarm was raised. No one called his parents. No one checked to see where he'd gone. It was just assumed he was somewhere, safe, with someone. But Kyron was nowhere. When the final bell rang, buses lined up outside the school like they always did. Kids ran to their rides. Teachers waved goodbye. And then Kyron's bus arrived at his stop. But he wasn't on it. His mother, Desiree Young, stood waiting. The seconds turned to minutes. She asked the bus driver, "Where's Kyron?" The driver shook his head. He never got on the bus. That's when everything changed. That's when the clock really started ticking. She called Kane. Kane called Terry. Terry said she dropped him off, just like normal. That he was happy, smiling, excited about the fair. She even sent the photo. A photo wasn't enough. At 3:46 p.m., the first 911 call came in. 7-year-old boy missing from Skyline Elementary. Within the hour, police arrived. Within 2 hours, they shut the school down. No one in, no one out. They searched every classroom, every bathroom, every closet, every crawl space beneath the building. They even checked the boiler room. Outside, officers moved into the surrounding woods. Thick, forested hills stretched for miles in every direction. Drones scanned the treetops. Canine units were brought in to track scent. Boats checked nearby creeks and rivers. Within 24 hours, it became clear. This wasn't just a kid who wandered off. This was an abduction, or worse. But there was no ransom note, no demands, no sightings, no witnesses. That weekend, more than 300 trained search and rescue personnel were on site. Helicopters hovered overhead. The FBI joined the investigation. Search grids were mapped out and expanded by the hour. Volunteers came by the hundreds. Neighbors, teachers, friends, even strangers from other cities. People printed flyers, handed out water bottles, posted to forums and Facebook groups. The photo of Kyron smiling in front of his science fair board was now everywhere. And always the same haunting words underneath: missing. The woods surrounding the school were combed for days, then weeks. Searchers worked in shifts, rain or shine. They scoured ravines, riverbanks, abandoned sheds, but they found nothing. Not a shoe, not a backpack, not a torn scrap of his project board. Nothing. It was as if the earth had opened up and swallowed him whole. This became the largest search operation in Oregon state history. Over 1,300 tips came in. Each was followed. Each lead nowhere. Police interviewed every adult present at the school that day. Parents, teachers, janitors, bus drivers. Nothing suspicious. No signs of a break. No one strange spotted around the building. And most chilling of all, there were no security cameras inside the school. No footage. No timeline. Just a photo. And a missing boy. The pressure on law enforcement grew quickly. The media arrived in waves. News vans camped outside Skyline Elementary. Reporters asked, "How does a child disappear? From a school? In broad daylight?" No one had an answer. Not then. Not now. What began as a missing child alert had become something much darker. A mystery that rattled not just a family, but an entire state. And behind the search, behind the cameras and canine units, a darker suspicion was beginning to take shape. A question no one wanted to ask, but couldn't ignore. Was someone close to Kyron involved? 5. The stepmother, suspicion without proof. As the days dragged on and no trace of Kyron appeared, investigators turned their focus inward. Not on strangers, not on masked kidnappers, but on someone close. Very close. Terry Moulton Horman, Kyron's stepmother, had been the last confirmed person to see him alive. She was also the one who dropped him off at school that morning. The one who took the final photo. The one whose story began to raise questions. At first, Terry told police that she left the school around 8:45 a.m. She said she watched Kyron walk toward his classroom. Then she ran errands, went to the gym, and posted on Facebook. But as investigators combed through witness statements, not everything lined up. No one else remembered seeing Kyron after that moment. No students, no teachers, no parents, only Terry. And there were no security cameras to confirm her version of events. Then came the timeline problem. Cell phone data showed that between 9 o'clock and 10:30 a.m., Terry's phone pinged not near her usual gym, but in a rural area several miles away in the opposite direction. An area filled with forested backroads and abandoned structures. What was she doing there? She said she was driving her baby daughter around to soothe her. But that explanation never sat well with investigators. And then came something even more disturbing. As police dug into Terry's past, a former friend came forward with a shocking claim. According to the friend, Terry had tried to hire someone to kill her husband, Kyron Horman. The man she approached was the family's landscaper. She allegedly offered him money to murder Kyron, even discussed details of how and when to do it. This happened months before Kyron disappeared. The landscaper didn't go through with it, but he later passed a polygraph confirming the story, and even wore a wire during conversations with Terry hoping to get a confession. But Terry never admitted anything on tape. When confronted with this information, Kyron was blindsided. He immediately took full custody of their baby daughter and filed for divorce. And now, in the public's eyes, Terry wasn't just a grieving stepmother. She became suspect number one. But here's the problem. There was no direct evidence linking Terry to Kyron's disappearance. No eyewitnesses, no fingerprints, no DNA, no camera footage, no confession, just suspicion, and behavior that many considered strange. In the weeks after Kyron went missing, Terry refused to speak directly to detectives without a lawyer. She also failed multiple polygraph tests. According to sources, she became defensive, evasive, and later, completely uncooperative. The media seized on this. Every expression, every quote, every outfit she wore was scrutinized. The public quickly formed a narrative. She did it. But legally, there was nothing police could do. No arrest. No charges. Not even an official person of interest. Terry moved out. She changed her name. And for over a decade, she has never been arrested in connection to Kyron's case. Theories abound. Some believe she snapped out of resentment or anger toward Kyron or Kyron. Some think she planned it carefully. Others still hold on to the possibility that someone else, someone totally unknown, took Kyron that day. But one thing is certain. Terry Moulton Horman became the most publicly vilified non-suspect in Oregon history. To this day, she denies all involvement. She says she loved Kyron, that she's being scared, that police focused too hard on her and ignored other possibilities. But even now, 15 years later, when you mention Kyron Horman's name, Terry is the first name that comes to mind. And still, after all this time, there's no proof, only a missing boy, and a long shadow of suspicion that refuses to fade. 6. Theories. 15 years later, and there is still no trace of Kyron Horman. No body, no clue, no closure. In that silence, theories grew, each one more haunting than the last. Theory 1, the abduction. The most accepted theory, the simplest one, that Kyron was abducted, taken by someone he knew, or a total stranger, But if it was a stranger, how did they get inside? No signs of forced entry, no screams, no reports of anyone suspicious on campus. Hundreds of people were there. It was a school morning. Parents, teachers, kids everywhere. How do you take a child without being seen? And if it was someone he knew, someone he trusted, then who and where did they go? The school is surrounded by miles of dense Oregon wilderness. A child could vanish out there. So could a body. But after the largest search operation in state history, not a shred was found. Could someone really be that careful? That fast? Theory 2, he ran away. Some have asked, could Kyron have run away? It seems unlikely. He was 7 years old. He had no money, no plan, no reason. He was excited about the science fair. He had his whole day ahead of him. But what if he got confused, turned the wrong way, wandered off into the woods behind the school? Again possible, but still no evidence, and no remains. Not even after weeks of combing the terrain. A child might disappear, but not without a single trace. Theory 3. Someone at the school. Then there's the darker possibility that someone inside Skyline Elementary was involved. A teacher, a parent, a volunteer, someone who knew the layout, who knew how to avoid attention. It would explain how there was no struggle, no witnesses, no sign of forced entry or alarm. But police interviewed every single adult in the building that day. They found nothing suspicious. No criminal backgrounds. No inconsistencies. And still, it's a theory that lingers. Because when a child disappears inside a public school in daylight, you have to ask, did someone help cover it up? Theory 4, something else entirely. And then there are the theories that drift away from fact, into the strange. Some believe Kyron was taken by a trafficker, part of a larger, hidden network, moved quickly and silently out of state. Others speak of satanic cults, of Oregon's remote forests hiding darker rituals. There's no evidence, but the internet is full of speculation. And then there are those who whisper of things not human, that something was drawn to Kyron, that the photo, that last image of him smiling beside his science fair project, was a kind of farewell. Some even point to the project itself. It was about red tree frogs, native to South America. The species is known for being able to disappear into their... Is that a stretch? Of course. But in the absence of facts, the void gets filled with myth. No theory has ever been confirmed. No one has been charged. No remains have been found. And so every explanation, from the logical to the paranormal, remains on the table. All we know for certain is this. On June 4th, 2010, a smiling boy walked into school and was never seen again. Everything else is just a theory. It's been over 15 years. The walls of Skyline Elementary have been repainted. The students have grown up, but the space where Kyron stood still feels empty. His face is frozen in time, forever 7 years old, forever smiling next to a science project that never got presented. No goodbye, no answers, just silence. Someone knows what happened that day. Maybe they were in the hallway. Maybe they're still out there, watching, and until the truth comes out. Kyron Horman is still missing. If this story unsettled you, you're not alone. Subscribe for more real mysteries, the kind that never quite leave you. This is Dark Truths, where the stories are real and the endings never come easy.